are going to inspect a hive. This is a 10-frame hive in 2 5-frame boxes with one stacked on top of the other. So it's the same volume as a 10-frame single box, but it's 2 5-frames. We're gonna crack open this outer cover. First, we're just gonna smoke lightly in front of the hive. We're letting the bees know we're here. We're gonna stand to one side of the hive so that we are not blocking the entrance. And we're gonna use our hive tool to crack the propolis envelope. Remember that propolis is a resinous substance that bees bring back to the hive and they use to protect the entire outer layer of the hive. So, cracked the propolis envelope. And when we think about a hive, we're looking down into a hive right now with frames, and we're gonna think about a hive not as a rectangular shape, because organically that's not what it is. We're gonna think about a hive as like an oval or a large circular shape. And the center of our hive is always gonna be our brood nest. That's where the young bees are in their larval stage, in their egg stage, in their pupation stage, and in their nurse bee stage. So remember, we said we're gonna talk about the different roles in the hive. So nurse bees are one of those roles. We'll go into that in a second. But what we're looking at right now is just that this hive has a central brood nest where the young bees are, and then the adult bees are doing work, and then it has food stored on the outer edges. In this particular hive, we have what's called a frame feeder. This is one way of feeding hives. We feed hives either a honey or a sugar syrup when there are dearths, when they are small and need to grow quickly, or when there's not enough food in the area. And we are going to take that out so that we can inspect the hive. Whenever I have a frame feeder in, I always give a quick glance to make sure the queen is not on the feeder, because you just never know. Put that aside. We are now gonna crack our first frame. What I suspect we'll find on this is nectar or just bees cleaning out a frame. Yep. So, like I said, we have nectar on this frame. You can tell nectar because it's the shiny stuff inside of each individual cell. Bees often have their heads in nectar cells, and they are eating when you see them like that with their butts sticking up. And all of these are worker bees. Worker bees make up a huge percentage of the hive. There's one queen. About 25% of the hive at the height of the season will be drones. And then worker bees are the workforce of the hive. They're doing all of the jobs to make the hive function and thrive. So what we're seeing up here is a little bit of nectar, new combs of wax that I just gave these bees a few days ago. That tells me they're moving up into these combs. They're starting to fill them with nectar. And this light colored comb tells me that they're drawing new comb, which means there is a nectar flow on. Again, up here we have worker bees, and most of what we're seeing up here is foragers. They're bringing food back to the hive. This little one here has pollen pants. Pollen they're bringing back. And foragers are responsible for bringing back nectar, pollen, water, propolis, and any little bits of mycelial structure that the hive may need to balance out its enzymes or its diet. So foragers, they're adult bees, and they bring all of the food back to the hive and all of the resource that the hive needs to thrive. They're going to be working outside the hive and inside the hive. So what we're seeing up here are a lot of foragers either eating some food or bringing some food in. Now, I'm gonna go back to this comb. This comb that's being built right here that's new is built by young bees. And young bees have wax scales on their bellies, and they emit a lot of wax when they're in this builder stage of their life, thus allowing the hive to expand and grow. We're gonna go down below, and we're probably gonna see more of the central brood nest. Remember I said food and resource tends to be on the outer edges, while brood and young tends to be on the inner central part. So we're seeing more bees now, and we're lightly smoking them to drive them down. We don't have to drive smoke into the hive. We just have to lightly smoke the hive to drive the bees down. And we're doing that so that we can easily put our pry bar between these frames and move them without crushing bees. When you crush bees, they emit a pheromone, and that pheromone tells other bees there's danger. So you're gonna have more bees driving up, flying up, and potentially trying to sting you. So this smoke is allowing our bees to stay calm, disrupting a little bit of their pheromone communication, and letting us get in and see what's going on. If you're ever feeling like there are a lot of bees flying up at you when you're doing an inspection, it's good to take a step back, reground yourself into your feet, and take a few deep breaths, blowing gently out of your nose. You don't want to go because what happens then is the carbon from your breath draws more bees to you, and then you're breathing more heavily and the bees are coming towards you, and then it's triggering a fear response for you, and it's signaling to them through pheromones that something is going wrong. So I was feeling a little overwhelmed after taking a lot of stings earlier today, and I took this step back. Okay, so back to it. Light smoke on the top of this hive, and we're gonna check the hive out, hopefully getting a peek at the brood nest in the center. Again, this is an outer frame, so what we're seeing on this one is nectar and pollen. So, let's point this out. Pollen is yellow and dry, sometimes a little shiny, but not nearly shiny as the mostly water-based nectar from plants. And honey is nectar that is evaporated, has all of the water evaporated off of it. So what we're seeing here is lots of nectar and a little bit of pollen coming in, and some bees snacking. And as we get closer to the center, we'll start seeing more of what's called brood, or young bees in different stages of pupation. More pollen here, and an opportunity to see our drone bees. Drone bees are what classifies as the male bees of a hive. Pick one up. Drone bees have no stinger, and they have 360-degree ocular vision, so they can see 360 degrees. Their main role in the hive is to mate with young queens. So you'll see them around in the spring and the summer, anytime there's a nectar flow really. And their goal is to get the genetics of the hive out diversely in the ecosystem. They don't do much work beyond that, because the work that they do have to do is so tiring. They fly for hours and hours and hours all throughout their lives. So they can fly up to 3 miles in a day, and they are just looking for mating partners. And other than that, they're eating and sleeping and waiting to mate. On this frame, we see some of that plastic foundation. So this is that plastic foundation we saw in our materials tour. And we see new wax that's drawn off of that with nectar and pollen in it. And in the center here is where we start to see the brood nest. There's eggs there, there's larvae in a very early stage, and there's a bunch of royal jelly sitting at the bottom of each of these cells. And that royal jelly is what the little bees feed on. They eat pollen and nectar combined together called bee bread, but in the early part of their lives, they all get tons of royal jelly as a fortifying nutrient. Now this is a good example of the complete diet of the hive. So we have nectar on the outer edge here, we have pollen, and then we have royal jelly in all of these little young larval cups. Pollen is the protein of a hive. Nectar is the carbohydrate of a hive. And they're both necessary for a complete diet inside the hive. All right, so we just started to see the young larva there, and we're gonna keep looking for more brood in this hive. This hive is pretty young. They had a queen who went out and mated. She just came back recently. So I may only see open brood. So on this frame, I see open brood. I'll show you again. It's in the center here. We're starting to see open brood because there's a young queen. She's just started laying. We're not seeing any capped brood, but these chunky little worms, those are gonna be capped brood, and then baby bees and adult bees. I'm looking for a queen. Aha! Here's the queen of this hive. We can tell the queen apart from the workers because she has what's called a longer thorax, with this end, the end of her body here. She has a bald abdomen, or the center of her body. And often she's moving through the hive looking for places that she can lay an egg. She's followed by what's called a retinue, or a group of bees who are taking care of her and making sure that she is fed, that she is cleaned, that she has everything she needs to function as the crucial egg-laying apparatus or ovum of the hive. She's not in charge. She's cared for. She's valuable. She's important. She serves a function of keeping the hive growing prosperously. But the workers really are the bees that are calling the shots in a hive. I'll get you a quick close-up of this queen. There she is. Hi, Mama. And workers are really the ones who manage the hive. They communicate through, manage all of the hive's needs. They communicate through pheromones, they communicate through dance, and they communicate through vibration and touch. And they're constantly checking the queen to see if she's okay, to ensure that she's healthy, to direct her where to lay next, which cells are clean. And all these bees that you see here above our open brood, those are going to be our nurse bees, our caretaking bees, the bees that are caring for the young, cleaning out these cells and making sure that the inside of the hive is functioning so it can grow and contract as necessary. So here again is that queen's retinue. She's moving around, looking for a place to lay. See all the bees touching her, trying to communicate her needs. All right, so we've seen our queen, we've seen the central brood nest, we've seen the outer edges with food. We're gonna gently and lovingly place this frame back where it was. And then we're gonna move the frames back into place. Now, if you are like me and you can often become forgetful, you could mark the frames 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as you take them out, you can put them back appropriately. When you disrupt the organization of the hive, it takes the hive several days to adapt to that. And that means that that's several days that they could be foraging, looking for food, or shifting the cycles to meet the emerging needs of the environment. So it's really vital and important that you put the frames back in the order and in the direction that they came out of the hive. Again, if that's challenging for you, numbering these, putting arrows on them so you know what direction they're in will help you put the hive back together so that it can continue to function as it already was, rather than have to sort of clean up after you and clean up after the mess that you made by shifting everything around. This is somebody's house. Be kind, be attentive, be aware of the space, and be grateful that you get to be in it and experience it with them. Once we're done with a hive inspection, put the boxes back together very gently and lovingly. Again, making sure the top box is in the same orientation. Get this frame feeder back in. There's not a lot of bees up here, so I'm not using smoke, but I'm also being careful not to squish bees between the frame feeder and the frames, and to push things down slowly and gently. Here we go. If you're meeting resistance, it's a potential to squish bees, so you need to move slow when you first begin until you understand the rhythms of the hive and understand the opportunities for causing any kind of damage. All right, close that up. And that is it. So that was our... So I want to take a minute here and just walk through the basic biology of the hive. Again, imagining that this rectangular shape has an oval in the center of it. The center of our hive is always going to be where our brood or young bees are. Our young bees, in both their egg, larval, and pupating state, are going to be cared for by caretaker or nurse bees who give them their food, clean their cells, make sure they have everything they need to go through a successful pupation. Those same bees are also going to be taking care of the queen. Once bees are old enough to become foragers, they do what is called orientation flights. So they orient themselves to the location that they're from so that they can leave the hive and get resources and then return back to the hive successfully. So orientation flights are what prepare bees, build in their magnetic understanding of where their home is so that they can leave their home and become foragers for resources. Forager bees are searching for propolis, that resin they use to coat the inside of the hive and make it nice and tight and safe and clean. They are looking for pollen, which is their protein source. They are looking for nectar, which is their carbohydrate source. They are looking for water. They're looking for little mycelial bits. And they're bringing all of that back to their home so that they can grow when we're in times of abundance, and so that they can have enough resource for moments of contraction. That's it, y'all. I think that is the most important core functions you need to know about a beehive for bee camp day 1. And we're gonna get into so much more, but I don't wanna overwhelm you, overstimulate you, so we're gonna stop here with the buzzing of the bees as the sun is getting ready to crest behind the trees, and wish you a good afternoon.